Thinking about moving to a new state? Have you considered the challenges you might face in certain places across the US? Some states, despite their beauty and charm, come with hidden struggles that could make your move harder than expected. High crime rates, poor healthcare, and limited job opportunities. These factors might surprise you. Curious to know which states made the list for 2025? Stick around as we dive into the 10 states you should never move to and discover why these places may not be the dream destinations you think they are. Number 1. Louisiana. Alright, let's kick things off with Louisiana, a state that's both known for its vibrant culture and, well, its struggles. Louisiana ranks as the 49th worst state to live in, according to WalletHub's 2024 report, and it's not hard to see why. With a crime rate that's among the highest in the nation, living here can be pretty risky. In 2023, Baton Rouge, for example, had a crime rate that was 200% higher than the national average. That's enough to make anyone think twice about packing their bags. But the crime isn't the only issue. Let's talk about healthcare. Louisiana has one of the lowest health outcomes in the country. The state ranks 50th for overall health, according to the America's Health Rankings report. Poor access to healthcare and high rates of preventable diseases like obesity and diabetes make staying healthy tough. And let's not even get started on the education system. Louisiana's high school graduation rate is just 80%, lower than the national average of 85%. So, if you're moving here with kids, it's something to consider. On the bright side, Louisiana has some of the best food in the country: gumbo, jambalaya, beignets. But, unfortunately, those delicious treats come at a price. The cost of living is rising, and with it, so is the poverty rate. As of 2023, around 19% of Louisianans live below the poverty line, compared to the national average of 12%. If you're thinking of calling Louisiana home, just make sure you're prepared for a state with a lot of challenges. Number 2. Alaska. Alaska is undoubtedly stunning. Think northern lights, majestic mountains, and glaciers, but it's also a state that comes with a very specific set of challenges. One of the biggest hurdles? The cost of living. Alaska's remote location means that most goods need to be shipped in, making prices skyrocket. For example, the average cost of groceries in Alaska is about 30% higher than the national average. Yes, you read that right, 30%. And don't even get me started on heating bills. In the winter months, you might find yourself paying 50% more for energy than in other states. But the high cost of living isn't the only thing that makes Alaska tough to live in. The job market is another concern. Alaska's unemployment rate, though lower than the national average, still hovers around 6.0%. Not great when you're trying to make ends meet. What's more, the state's economy is highly dependent on oil and gas industries. So if those industries are struggling, Alaska's economy is struggling too. In 2020, Alaska saw its economy shrink by 2.6%, which was one of the steepest declines in the nation. And for those who crave social connections, Alaska can feel incredibly isolating. With a population density of just 1.3 people per square mile, you could live miles away from the nearest neighbor, or even from essential services. Add that to the fact that Alaska experiences over 19 hours of darkness during winter, and you've got a recipe for some serious cabin fever. But hey, if you love the outdoors and a quiet life, Alaska's vast wilderness might just be your perfect escape. Number 3. Mississippi. Now let's talk about Mississippi. It's a state that, while rich in history and southern charm, has some pretty heavy challenges. Mississippi consistently ranks near the bottom of almost every best states to live in list, and it's easy to see why. For starters, the state has the highest poverty rate in the US, with nearly 20% of its residents living below the poverty line. This is far above the national average of 12%. With an economy that's still struggling to diversify beyond agriculture and manufacturing, many Mississippians face limited job opportunities and wages that are much lower than the national average. Healthcare in Mississippi is another significant issue. The state has the highest obesity rate in the country, with over 40% of adults in Mississippi considered obese. The consequences? High rates of heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. And while the state has made efforts to improve its healthcare system, it still ranks near the bottom in terms of access and quality. In fact, Mississippi ranks 50th for healthcare access, with just 82.1% of the population having health insurance, compared to the national average of 91.5%. Education is another concern. Mississippi's high school graduation rate sits at around 85%, slightly below the national average, and many schools in the state lack the resources to provide high-quality education. In fact, the state spends about $9,000 per student, far below the national average of $13,000. So, if you're considering moving to Mississippi, make sure you're okay with dealing with some of the state's persistent challenges. Number 4. New Mexico. New Mexico might seem like a hidden gem with its vast deserts and beautiful landscapes, but it also has some serious issues that make it tough to live in. First off, let's talk about crime. New Mexico has one of the highest crime rates in the U.S. In 2023, Albuquerque, the state's largest city, had a violent crime rate that was 200% higher than the national average. That's a staggering statistic that anyone considering relocating to the state should be aware of. Next, there's the job market. New Mexico's economy has long struggled with high unemployment rates, and the state's job growth is sluggish at best. The unemployment rate is consistently above the national average, with 2023 data showing it at 5.4%. While there are job opportunities in industries like government and healthcare, New Mexico still relies heavily on low-wage jobs, which can make it tough for families to get ahead. And then there's the education system. New Mexico ranks near the bottom in terms of educational outcomes, with a high school graduation rate of just 77% compared to the national average of 85%. Plus, many schools in the state are underfunded, with some spending as little as $8,000 per student. For families who value education, this can be a real concern. Number 5. West Virginia. West Virginia is known for its stunning mountains, but unfortunately, the state also has some serious struggles that make it a tough place to live. For starters, West Virginia consistently ranks as one of the most economically depressed states in the U.S. The state's GDP has been shrinking for years, and unemployment remains stubbornly high at 5.3% as of 2023. With a lack of major industries and many areas still dependent on coal, economic growth is limited, and many families struggle to find stable, well-paying jobs. Healthcare is another major issue in West Virginia. The state has one of the highest rates of smoking in the U.S., which contributes to chronic health problems. In fact, nearly 23% of West Virginians smoke, far above the national average of 14%. This, combined with a lack of access to healthcare in rural areas, means that many residents struggle with poor health outcomes. West Virginia also has some of the worst education outcomes in the country. The state's high school graduation rate is only 84%, which is below the national average. The state spends just $9,600 per student, significantly less than the national average of $13,000. If you're moving with kids, you'll want to take these educational challenges into account. Number 6. Arkansas. Let's talk about Arkansas, known for its natural beauty and outdoor recreation, but also home to some significant issues that can make it a challenging place to call home. First off, Arkansas has one of the highest poverty rates in the U.S., with nearly 19% of its residents living below the poverty line, compared to the national average of 12%. The state's median household income is also lower than the national average, around $47,000 compared to $70,000 nationwide. This means that residents often struggle to make ends meet, even though they're working hard. Jobs in Arkansas are generally lower paying, and despite its natural beauty, it doesn't boast many high-paying industries to support its population. Healthcare is another area where Arkansas falls short. The state ranks 46th in the country for overall health, with some of the highest rates of obesity, heart disease, and diabetes in the nation. According to the CDC, about 40% of Arkansas adults are considered obese, and the state has a higher than average rate of smoking, which leads to even higher rates of chronic health conditions. With many rural areas lacking access to quality healthcare, residents often face longer wait times and fewer medical options. The education system is also a major concern in Arkansas. The state ranks 41st in the nation for high school graduation rates, with only 85% of students graduating on time. Arkansas also spends just over $9,000 per student, which is well below the national average of $13,000. As a result, public schools in Arkansas often suffer from overcrowded classrooms and limited resources, which puts students at a disadvantage when compared to other states. Furthermore, the job market in Arkansas is somewhat stagnant. The state has a high reliance on agriculture and natural resources, which means job opportunities are often limited, especially for younger generations looking for work in tech, healthcare, or more modern industries. Number 7. Alabama. Alabama, a state known for its southern hospitality and deep history, faces some serious challenges that can make it tough to move here. One of the biggest concerns is the state's education system, which consistently ranks among the lowest in the nation. In 2023, Alabama was ranked 46th for education quality, with less than 80% of high school students graduating on time, which is below the national average of 85%. The state spends only $9,000 per student, compared to the national average of $13,000. As a result, schools often face overcrowded classrooms, outdated materials, and underpaid teachers, making it a tough environment for students to thrive. Healthcare in Alabama is another big issue. The state has one of the highest rates of chronic health conditions, including obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. In fact, Alabama ranks 47th in the country for overall health. Around 35% of adults in the state are considered obese, and the state's smoking rate is higher than the national average at 22%. Additionally, access to healthcare is limited, especially in rural areas, where many residents have to drive hours to reach a doctor. Alabama has one of the highest uninsured rates in the nation. Nearly 14% of the population lacks health insurance, well above the national average of 9%. The job market is also a bit shaky in Alabama. While the state has seen some growth in the automotive and aerospace industries, the median household income in Alabama is only around $53,000, well below the U.S. average of $70,000. The unemployment rate hovers around 3.5%, but there are still areas, particularly rural counties, where job opportunities are limited. With lower wages and limited opportunities for career growth, many Alabamians find it difficult to improve their standard of living. Number 8. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is another state that offers a unique combination of beauty and challenge. While Oklahoma has a rich history and some breathtaking natural landscapes, like the Great Plains and the Wichita Mountains, it's also a state with significant issues. One of the biggest concerns for residents is the state's healthcare system. Oklahoma ranks 45th in the nation for healthcare quality, with limited access to quality care in rural areas. In fact, about 14% of Oklahomans are uninsured, which is above the national average of 9%. The state also has one of the highest rates of smoking and obesity in the U.S., which leads to poor health outcomes and higher medical costs for residents. Weather is another issue in Oklahoma. While the state is known for its beautiful sunsets and vast landscapes, it's also infamous for its extreme weather. Oklahoma is located in Tornado Alley, which means residents often face severe storms, including tornadoes, hail, and flooding. In fact, Oklahoma averages more than 50 tornadoes per year, making it one of the most dangerous places in the U.S. when it comes to severe weather. While the state is well prepared for these storms, the fear of natural disasters can be a major deterrent for people considering relocating to the area. And let's not forget the education system in Oklahoma. The state ranks 42nd in the U.S. for education quality, with a high school graduation rate of just 85%. In rural areas, public schools are underfunded, and many districts are struggling to provide students with the resources they need to succeed. On top of that, Oklahoma spends just $8,600 per student, which is significantly below the national average of $13,000. For families with school-age children, this lack of investment in education can be a serious concern. Number 9. South Carolina. South Carolina is a state that has seen a lot of growth in recent years, especially in cities like Charleston and Greenville. However, the state also has its share of struggles that can make living here less than ideal. One of the major issues is the crime rate. South Carolina has one of the highest violent crime rates in the country, with cities like Columbia and Charleston regularly ranking among the top in the nation for violent crime. According to FBI crime data, from 2023, the violent crime rate in South Carolina is 15% higher than the national average, which is concerning for anyone looking to relocate. Additionally, the state's education system leaves much to be desired. South Carolina ranks 44th in the U.S. for overall education quality. In 2023, only 80% of high school students graduated on time, and the state spends just $10,500 per student, significantly lower than the national average of $13,000. This results in overcrowded classrooms, a lack of resources, and poor academic performance in many schools across the state. When compared to other states, South Carolina's educational system ranks poorly, which could impact families moving there. The job market in South Carolina is also somewhat limited. While the state has seen some growth in manufacturing and tourism, wages are lower than the national average. The median household income is just $58,000, which is about 17% below the U.S. median of $70,000. This means that many residents struggle to make ends meet, particularly in rural areas where jobs can be scarce. Unemployment is higher in these areas, and the poverty rate in South Carolina is around 16%, much higher than the national average of 12%. Despite the state's natural beauty, including beaches and forests, the high crime rates, poor education system, and lower wages make South Carolina a place where you might want to think twice before settling down. Number 10. Michigan. Let's talk about Michigan. While the state might immediately bring to mind images of Detroit, cars, and lakes, it also has a reputation for significant economic and social challenges that make it a tricky place to move to in 2025. One of the biggest issues facing Michigan is the decline of traditional manufacturing industries, which historically served as the backbone of the state's economy. As of 2023, Michigan's unemployment rate still hovers around 4.5%, which is slightly above the national average of 3.8%. While the state has tried to diversify its economy, the shift away from auto manufacturing has left many working-class communities in a bind, struggling to find new sources of income. The unemployment rate is especially high in cities like Detroit, where it's been recorded as 7.3% in recent years, significantly higher than the state average. Additionally, Detroit's poverty rate is about 30%, which is well above the national average of 12.3%. This combination of job scarcity and economic hardship has made it difficult for many residents to get ahead. In fact, Detroit was once known as the Motor City, but as auto jobs have declined, many neighborhoods have been left abandoned, contributing to the city's rising crime rates. Education is another major hurdle in Michigan. The state ranks 35th in the nation for high school graduation rates, with only about 80% of students finishing high school on time. Public schools, especially in lower-income areas, suffer from overcrowding and a lack of resources, which means students often don't have access to the same opportunities as in other states. Michigan also spends significantly less per pupil, around $10,000 compared to the national average of $13,000. Finally, Michigan faces serious infrastructure challenges. Roads and bridges are in dire need of repair, with Michigan ranking 9th in the U.S. for roads in poor condition, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers. So, while Michigan has some beautiful natural resources and vibrant cities, its ongoing economic struggles, high unemployment rates, and educational gaps make it a state you might want to think twice about moving to.